Hi guys, today I'm going to talk about the teenage English literature. And in this case I'm going to tell you about two novels that have become a real treasure of English literature of the 20th century. They are The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. Well, these two novels were written by J.R.R. Tolkien, so first let's know a little bit about him. Well, J.R.R. Tolkien, who was born in 1892 in South Africa, grew up in England with his mother after the early death of his father. He attended school at the prestigious Oxford University until he left to fight in the World War I. In 1999, when the war was over, he returned to school and his wife, whom he had married during the war. And Tolkien's intellectual career began when he was selected to assist in the compilation of the Oxford English Dictionary. After that, he taught and accepted academic fellowships until completing The Hobbit in 1938. His first novel was an immediate success with both children and adults. And then The Lord of the Rings follows The Hobbit in 1954. He died in 1973 before completing a massive literary undertaking that included the complete history of Middle-earth, known as the Silmarillion. He still maintains his status as one of the most loved writers of fantasy literature today, and his popularity only grows with each new generation of fans. Well, now let's start with the first novel, that is The Hobbit. Well, this novel is set in Middle-earth. The book was first published on September 21st, 1937, and is set in the years 2941 to 2942 of the Third Age, before the events of The Lord of the Rings. This book is both complex and sophisticated because it contains many names and words derived from Norse mythology and central plot elements from the Beowulf epic. It makes use of Anglo-Saxon runes, information on calendars and moon phases, and detailed geographical descriptions that fit well with the accompanying maps. So now let's see the main characters of the novels. The first is Bilbo. Well, Bilbo is the main character of the story. He is a hobbit who prefers domesticity to adventure. Bilbo is hardly the raw material of a hero, but as the story progresses, he develops into a clever and a brave hero. Then we have Gandalf. He is a friend of Bilbo's mother, and he controls the gathering of Bilbo and the dwarves that initiates the adventure. He has plenty of wisdom, magical skills, usually fireworks, and useful contacts with the individuals like Bjorn and the Lord of the Eagles. Now we have Smaug. He is the major villain of the story. He is a dragon that has terrorized several towns, and within his mountain he guards a massive hoard of treasure. And then we have Thorin. He is the leader of the dwarves that accompany Bilbo to the cave of Smaug. And like most dwarves, he is focused on wealth, political ascendancy, and historical lineage. Finally, we have Balin and Walin. They are among the dwarves that accompany Bilbo, and they are brothers. So guys, let's start now with the plot of the story. Well, at the very start of the story, the reader learns what hobbits are. A smaller, shyer, home-loving race related to humans. A race living in a far distant mythical past on a world both like and unlike Earth. The central characters, the young hobbit Bilbo, seems typical of his people at the beginning, content to live a quiet and unexciting life in his cozy dwelling. But from the beginning, however, the story sounds a note of mystery. Gandalf, a wizard whose powers are only hinted at, has seen in Bilbo a taste for adventure and a capacity for heroism. Gandalf knows that the dwarf Thorin plans a return to the Lonely Mountain, the former home of his people. Long ago the dwarves had been driven from the mountain by a dragon who has converted it into a secret lair. What the dwarves need is a burglar, someone who can penetrate the lair and scout its defenses, and Gandalf, without informing Bilbo, tells Thorin that Bilbo is just the hobbit for the job. Thus, at the beginning of the story, Thorin and his band of followers show up at Bilbo's hall and sweep him away on the quest. So then, although Bilbo shows some initial reluctance, Gandalf had judged him rightly. Bilbo sets out with the dwarves and steps into a larger world. As the band travels to the Lonely Mountain, they encounter situations that increase in danger. They are threatened by trolls and captured by goblins, and during the later episode, Bilbo gains a crucial possession and meets an important character. While lost in the Goblin Caverns, Bilbo finds a ring, and not alone afterward encounters its owner. This character is Gollum, a loathsome, solitary figure dwelling in darkness and ruled by his dread for a magical ring. Not knowing that he has lost the ring, Gollum regards Bilbo as an intruder and is ready to kill him when Bilbo challenges him to a game of riddles. With the ring in his possession, Bilbo is more than a match for Gollum, and in an act that will later be important, spares Gollum's life and escapes from the caverns. The adventures continue, but now Bilbo is rowing to fit his role. Thorin's band is seized by giant spiders and imprisoned by elves, a race long suspicious of dwarves, but the dwarves are delivered from each of these dangers by Bilbo's imagination and daring, qualities he himself had not suspected he possessed, and eventually they reach their destination. So once again Bilbo proves equal to the task, and by now he is rather enjoying being a burglar. He single-handedly enters the mountain lair, manages to confuse the dragon, and escapes with a piece of treasure from the hoard, an act that leads directly to the climax of the story. Discovering the left, the dragon suspects someone from there, a nearby town inhabited by humans, and he flies out to punish the thieves. During the devastation that follows, Bard, a hero from the town, kills the dragon with an arrow. In the meantime, Thorin, Bilbo, and the band of the dwarves re-enter the mountain caves, and Thorin prepares to establish the head of his kingdom there. As the climax approaches, forces are gathered into contest. Thorin claims to the dragon's treasure. The humans of Dale, the wood elf from the forest of Mirkwood, and a reinforcing army of dwarves kindred to Thorin's dispute who has a right to the treasure. This quarrel is postponed by the arrival of a force of wolves and goblins, and a general meal follows, one which Bilbo sees as the future result of Ring, and in which he takes no direct part. And although the wolves and goblins are defeated, the victory costs Thorin his life. Before he dies, though, Thorin realizes that his dread has killed him and that the treasure is large enough to share. After the dwarves, elves, and humans have become to a friendly settlement, Bilbo returns home with the memories of his trips and with the ring. So that was the story of The Hobbit, guys. Now let's see The Lord of the Rings, the second novel of J.R.R. Tolkien. Well, While The Hobbit has been adapted and elaborated upon in many ways, its sequel, The Lord of the Rings, is often claimed to be its greatest legacy. The plot shares the same basic structure, progressing in the same sequence. The Lord of the Rings contains several more supporting scenes and has a more sophisticated plot structures, following the paths of multiple characters. Tolkien wrote the later story in much less humorous tones and infused it with more complex moral and philosophical themes. The difference between the two stories can cause difficulties when readers, expecting them to be similar, find that they are not. Many of the thematic and stylistic differences arose because Tolkien wrote The Hobbit as a story for children, and The Lord of the Rings for the same audience, who had subsequently grown up since its publication. Further, Tolkien's concept of Middle-earth was to continually change and slowly evolve throughout his life and writings. Well, The Lord of the Rings was published in 3 volumes in 1954 and 1955. This book was divided into 3 volumes. The first volume is The Fellowship of the Ring, which contains books 1 and 2. The second volume is The Two Towers, which contains books 3 and 4. And the third volume is The Return of the King, which contains books 5 and 6. And the individual names for the books in this series are the book 1 is The Ring Sets Out, the book 2 is The Ring Goes South, the book 3 is The Treason of Isengard, the book 4 is The Ring Goes East, the book 5 is The War of the Ring, and the book 6 is The End of the Third Age. So now let's see the character of this novel. Well, the first is Frodo. He is a young, well-to-do hobbit, and when he discovers that the magic ring left to him by Bilbo is the One Ring, he reluctantly takes on the quest to destroy it. Then we have Gandalf. He is best known among hobbits for his fireworks and his sense of humor, but actually is one of the greatest powers of Middle-earth. He reveals the truth about the ring to Frodo and acts as a guide and consider. And he is also the leader of the Fellowship. Then we have Sam, his hobbit, Frodo's gardener at home, and his servant and friend on the quest. Sam is very fond of stories about dragons and elves. He is a member of the Fellowship and he stays with Frodo after it is broken. Now we have Aragorn, the heir of Isildur and the rightful king of Gondor, a mighty warrior and healer. He leads the Fellowship after Gandalf's fall. Now here we have Sauron. He is a powerful spirit of evil who now takes the form of a disembodied flaming eye. Sauron represents the worst aspect of power, especially greed, cruelty, and the desire for domination. Then we have Gollum. He is an early ring-bearer. He carried the ring, which gave him an unnaturally long life. So let's start with the story of The Lord of the Rings. Well, the story begins in the first volume, The Fellowship of the Ring, when Frodo Baggins, Bilbo's adopted heir, came into possession of Bilbo's magic ring. Bilbo's old friend Gandalf, who got Bilbo involved into the adventures in The Hobbit, discovered that it was in fact the One Ring, the instrument of Sauron's power, and the object for which the Dark Lord has been searching for most of the Third Age. Sauron sent the sinister ring wraiths in the Guise of Riders in Black to the Shires, Frodo's native land, in search of the ring. Frodo escaped with the help of his loyal gardener Sam and three close friends, Merry, Pippin, and Fairy. While Fairy acted as a decoy for the ring rites, Frodo and the others set off to take the ring to the elven haven of Rivendell. They were aided by the enigmatic Tom, who saved them from Old Man Willow, and took them in for a few days of feasting, rest, and concert. At the town of Bree, Frodo's party was joined by a man called Strider, who was revealed in a letter left by Gandalf at the local inn for Frodo to be Aragorn. So Aragorn led the hobbits to Rivendell on Gandalf's request. However, Frodo was gravely wounded by the leader of the ring rites, though he managed to recover under the care of the half-elven Lord Elrond. In Rivendell, the hobbits also learned that Sauron's forces could only be resisted if Aragorn took up his inheritance and fulfilled an ancient prophecy by wielding the sword Andúril, which had been forged anew from the shards of Narsil, the sword that cut the ring from Sauron's finger in the Second Age. A high council attended by representatives of the major races of Middle-earth, elves, dwarves, and men, and presided over by Elrond, decided that the only course of action that can save Middle-earth is to destroy the ring, by taking it to Mordor and casting it into Mount Doom, where it was forged. Frodo volunteered for the task, and a Fellowship of the Ring were formed to aid him, consisting of Frodo, his three hobbit companions, Gandalf, Aragorn, Boromir of Gondor, Gimli, the dwarf, and Legolas the elf. Their journey took them through the mines of Moria, where they were being followed by the red treasure Gollum, whom Bilbo had met in the goblin caves of the Misty Mountains years before. Gollum long possessed the ring before it passed to Bilbo. Gandalf explained that Gollum belonged to a people of hobbit kind, before he came upon the ring, which corrupted him. A slave to the ring's evil power, Gollum desperately sought to regain his precious. As they proceeded through the mines, Pippin unintentionally betrayed their presence, and the party was attacked by creatures of Sauron. Gandalf battled a giant subterranean demon, the Balrog, and fell into a deep trance, apparently to his death. Escaping from Moria, the Fellowship, now led by Aragorn, go to the elven realm of Lothlorien. Here, the Lady Galadriel showed Frodo and Sam visions of the past, present, and future. Frodo also saw the Eye of Sauron, a metaphysical expression of Sauron himself, and Galadriel was tempted by the ring. So, by the end of the first volume, after the Fellowship has traveled along the Great River Anduin, Frodo decided to continue the trek to Mordor on his own, largely due to the ring's roving influence on Boromir. However, the faithful Sam insisted on going with him. It was the first volume, so now let's see the second volume. And in the second volume, The Two Towers, a parallel story told in the first book of the volume, details the exploits of the remaining members of the Fellowship. And this second book of the volume tells of Frodo and Sam's exploits on the way to Mount Doom. They managed to capture and tame Gollum, who then showed them a way to enter Mordor secretly. So at the end of this volume, Gollum betrayed Frodo to the great spider, Shelob, and though he survived, he was captured by orcs. Meanwhile, Sauron launched an all-out military assault upon Middle-earth with the Witch King, leading a fell host from Minas Morgul into a battle against Gondor in the War of the Ring. And finally, in the third volume, The Return of the King, The further adventures of Gandalf, Aragorn, and company are related in the first book of the volume, while Frodo and Sam are related in the second, as with the Two Towers. So, finally Sauron was defeated and Aragorn was crowned king. However, all was not over, for Saruman managed to escape and scour the Shire before being overthrown. At the end, Frodo remained wounded in body and spirit and went west accompanied by Bilbo over the sea to Valinor, where he could finally find peace. So, well guys, that was all for today. I hope you can learn a little bit about these novels of J.R.R. Tolkien, The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings, which belongs to the teenage English literature. Thanks for watching.